line later on. But if you have started along with the scope resolution operator or using static methods, then you should stick to it rather than moving on or changing or altering your codes into instantiation processes. Now, because we are using this static keyword, we don't need to use variables anymore. We can directly refer to our class names, and we have actually assigned a default value to our parameter. This is because if our users, or if we have forgotten to provide an argument to this container method, then this would fall back to the default value and use that default value inside this return statement. So we have checked that the default value works. So the default value is post type, and the post type actually prints out on the browser. Now let us provide a custom value. Now what happens if we try to provide a numeric value, perhaps an integer that is 12? Let's save this script and let's head back to our web page and let's hit refresh. So whenever we hit refresh, we see that the list disappears. Why is that? Because the reason behind is that we have provided a check inside our method. The check is telling the method that if the class name is a string, then and only then you must execute this block of code. But if this class name is not a string, then skip this block of code and continue along the line, or continue along to the next statement. So we don't have any next statement here, and so it stops the program execution right at that point. So we don't have anything else. So it's not going to take any numeric values. It is only going to take up values that are strings. So let us now pass in a string value. So we can change the name to blog post maybe, or we can name it like this using an underscore. So I guess this notation is known as the Pascal notation, and there is this camel notation where your second word's first letter becomes an uppercase alphabet, and the first word's first letter or the first alphabet is kept to be a lowercase letter. So in many of the theme development, if you are a developer, maybe you have worked with frameworks like MVC frameworks and you want to move on to CMSs, and you want to work on developing plugins, you want to work on developing themes, then you need to remember that they have their certain conventions, and you need to stick to that strictly, obviously. Otherwise, your themes, if you want to distribute it in open source networks, or if you want to distribute your themes and plugins on in a marketplace, then you must adhere to conventions very strictly, otherwise it wouldn't be acceptable. And let's create this. So we have provided our custom value to this container method. Now let's save this and let us go back to our browser and let's see what happens. So now the browser sees that it's the class name that the user, or perhaps we are providing to the method container, is actually a string. So now it produces that return statement, which is actually rendering out an HTML markup on our web page. So now we get the list. If we hit on inspect element, and let's actually look at this again. Let's actually look at the HTML of the body. So in here, if you look carefully, then we see that our return statement is placing the unlisted unordered list, and then it's providing the first list item with the class attribute, and the class attribute has a value of blog post, and hence we are printing out that blog post or the name of the class inside the first list item, inside both of the ending list tag and the closing list tag. So I guess you're getting a connection between the HTML rendering and the PHP logic behind our scripts or our applications. So this was part of creating methods through static keywords or statically declaring our methods. You can also use statically declared properties. Just add that static keyword to your property, it will exactly work in the same way. You don't even need to use this part of instantiation to call your posts property. You just need to use the static keyword before this post. So let's actually do that. Let me show you that. Let's do this, and hence when we do that, let's change this code, and you see that previously when we didn't provide that static keyword before the property name of posts, we didn't get that posts inside our list. Now our ID automatically recognizes the static keyword and it produces that posts property on our list. We actually got that container class container method when we try to create the create the class name in this in this second printf function. But after we have declared the posts property to be static, we can actually use that in here. So let's do this, and and perhaps we can comment this out. Let's comment this out and let's save this. Actually it wouldn't have anything right now, so yeah, so we haven't passed any value, or we haven't stored any value inside this posts property. It's still null, so you don't see anything in here. So how do we assign a value of string or something like that inside our posts property? You just need to do the same thing. You need to refer the name of the post output class, the name of the class, followed by the scope resolution operator, and then you get this posts property name. You pass this along, and then you use the assignment operator just like any variable declaration or a value, in a way that you try to assign some value to your variable. So we're just doing the same thing, but in this case we are taking the object-oriented approach. Now let's pass in string value. So we'll call this blog post, and let's end this statement and let's save this. Let us head back to our browser and let's refresh this page. Now we get this blog post. So it's just the same thing as a method. In a method, because a method is a function inside a class, it's going to have that it's going to take in arguments if it has parameters, and if it's void, or if it does not return anything, or if it does not take in parameters, you just need to leave that you just need to leave that brackets alone without passing in any sort of argument. And for the part of properties, you saw that you can actually use it like any other ordinary variables, but you must use the scope resolution operator along with the class name. So let us now move on to another major topic of namespaces. So the namespaces are part of the object-oriented world, and it is contained in any form of programming languages that are used as objects. I mean, that has an object-oriented approach. So in PHP 2, because it also has that object-oriented part or methodology, it's also going to use these namespaces to create an unique scope inside its applications. So the primary reason we use namespaces are that if suppose you have two functions, and two functions, like we created one function called container, but you have two functions that are called container. This would actually cause problem in your application because your compiler wouldn't understand which container are you referring to. So namespaces solve this problem. So if you try to create that method called container inside a namespace that deals with deals with categories inside your blog, then you can actually store a method name called container inside the namespace that is named as blog. You can also create a container method and store it inside another namespace that is named as posts. Maybe, just for the sake of example, I'm making this up. So you can create functions of the same name, and you can store them in different namespaces, and you can refer them using the name of the namespaces, and this wouldn't cause any confusion in your programs or in your applications, and this wouldn't confuse your compiler too. So let us now look at how to create namespaces and how to segregate our codes into separate usage, although we might be creating the same methods.